Imagine you're a young woman in Athens, 500 BCE, your bare feet scraping against the sun-scorched, dusty ground of a bustling marketplace, the air thick with the sharp, metallic clink of iron chains binding your wrists and the sour, overwhelming stench of sweat from the throng of buyers and sellers pressing around you, your heart pounding like a trapped bird as unfamiliar voices shout bids in a language you barely understand, the weight of your new, inescapable reality sinking into your bones. As a rough hand tugs you forward. Welcome to the harsh, unforgiving world of ancient Greece, spanning from 1200 to 323 BCE, where slavery was not just a practice but the very backbone of society, and for women like you, it meant a life steeped in unimaginable horrors that were tragically normalized in the daily rhythm of cities like Athens, Sparta, and Corinth. This is the beginning of our 7-part journey into the horrific things that were normal for female slaves, a taboo history rooted in the chaos of war, the ruthless machinery of trade, and the unyielding grip of systemic control, preserved in the cracked pottery shards unearthed by archaeologists, the dry legal codes etched into stone, and the fragmented, haunting tales whispered through the ages. Historians like Sarah Pomeroy, in her groundbreaking work on women in classical antiquity, document this grim reality with meticulous detail, and today, its chilling echoes linger in the shadowy networks of human trafficking exposed and battled against in 2025, a reminder that the past's wounds still bleed into our present. If this already sends a shiver of dread and curiosity through you, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below where you're joining us from across the globe. Your voice ignites this hidden, harrowing past and lights the way for their stories to be heard. Slavery in ancient Greece was a pervasive, all-encompassing institution, shaping the lives of countless women with a cruelty that seeped into every aspect of their existence. Picture the scene: the harsh, unrelenting glare of the midday sun beating down on the teeming agora, the rough, abrasive texture of a coarse linen tunic clinging to your sweat-soaked skin as you're paraded before the crowd, the cold, biting edge of iron shackles rubbing your wrists raw with every movement, the air thick with the pungent, earthy aroma of olive oil wafting from nearby stalls piled high with goods and the faint, acrid tang of fear emanating from the other captives standing beside you. Women became slaves through the brutal aftermath of wars, like the legendary Trojan War where countless were taken as spoils, or through the relentless cycle of children born into bondage, their lives reduced to ceaseless labor and servitude in the households of the elite, the sacred precincts of temples, and the smoky workshops of artisans. Historical evidence, such as the inscriptions on the Piraeus stele, a marble slab listing slave transactions, reveals how thriving slave markets turned human lives into commodities, with women sold for domestic drudgery, textile work, or far worse fates dictated by the whims of their buyers, their futures sealed with the casual nod of a wealthy Athenian or Spartan master. The air carried the dusty, oppressive heat of the marketplace and the subtle, pervasive trace of despair that hung over every transaction, a world where freedom was a distant, unattainable dream snatched away by the clink of coins. Was this a cultural necessity forged by the demands of a growing civilization, a pragmatic adaptation to economic needs, or a profound moral failing that dehumanized an entire gender, a system where the clinking chains defined their every breath and heartbeat? The question lingers as the sun climbs higher in the sky, casting long shadows over the scene. Many who lived this relentless reality, women torn from their homes and families, traders profiting from their pain with cold indifference, overseers enforcing their subjugation, endured the crushing weight of this oppression, their resilience tested by the unending trials of their captivity, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering stalls of the agora. Their stories buried beneath the weight of ancient ruins and the dust of forgotten centuries, their pain a silent, persistent cry lost to the clamor of the crowd and the relentless march of time. Yet this system was more than a mere economic engine. It was a deliberate tool of societal control with deep, psychological roots that shaped the very soul of ancient Greek society. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, rhythmic clatter of coins changing hands as you're auctioned to the highest bidder, the bitter, metallic taste of water rationed sparingly to keep you compliant and weak, the heavy, authoritative thud of a guard's wooden staff as he herds you and the others forward with a stern glare. Greek philosophical texts, like those of Aristotle in his Politics, justify slavery as a natural order, arguing that some were born to serve while others to rule, with female slaves often subjected to additional scrutiny and exploitation due to their perceived physical and moral weakness, their bodies and minds molded into instruments to uphold the power and prestige of the elite class. The overseer's ever-watchful eyes and the ever-present threat of punishment, floggings, starvation, or public humiliation, ensured absolute obedience, turning the bustling marketplace into a grim stage of subjugation where every glance and gesture reinforced their status as property. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 exposés of trafficking rings operating in the shadows of global cities, where women face similar dehumanization, their autonomy stripped away by forces eerily reminiscent of this ancient past. Was this a societal norm accepted as the inevitable foundation of Greek prosperity, a tradition upheld to maintain order and wealth, or a deliberate, calculated act of domination designed to break their spirits and secure the elite's dominance, a world where slavery shaped their every fear and trembling step? The question hangs as the staff thuds against the ground with finality. Many suffered in this merciless trade, women stripped of their identity and humanity, families shattered by the loss of loved ones, communities complicit in the silence of economic gain, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched thin by the weight of their bondage, their pain a hidden, festering toll paid in silent tears and stifled sobs, their voices lost to the incessant clink of chains and the distant shouts of the marketplace. But the real torment was just beginning to unfold with the fall of the auctioneer's gavel. What awaited beyond the marketplace for these enslaved women, and what horrors would define their new lives? Smash that like button if you're intrigued by this dark unveiling, and subscribe now to uncover the truth that history has long buried beneath the sands of time. Imagine you're a woman in 1200 BCE, torn from your village after a brutal raid by Greek warriors, the air heavy with the acrid, choking smoke of burning homes and the sharp, echoing clang of swords clashing in the distance, your wrists bound with coarse, rough rope that cuts into your skin as you march toward the coast, your heart racing with raw terror and despair. This is the world of capture and trade, a grim escalation from the chains of antiquity in Part 1, where female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, faced the unrelenting horrors of enslavement through the chaos of war and the cold machinery of commerce. Here, in the bustling, unforgiving slave markets of Athens, Corinth, and the island of Delos, their lives were stripped of value and bought and sold like livestock, their stories etched into the fragile pottery fragments scattered across archaeological sites, the meticulous merchant records preserved on papyrus, and the whispered legends passed down through generations. Historians like David Lewis, in his detailed studies of Greek slavery, uncover this brutal trade with chilling precision, and today, its haunting echoes linger in the shadowy, clandestine networks of human trafficking exposed and combated in 2025, a stark reminder that the past's injustices still cast long shadows over our world. If this sends a shiver of dread and curiosity down your spine, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below where you're watching from across the globe. Your voice brings their untold tale to life and honors their memory. The capture of women into slavery began with the chaos and violence of war, a relentless cycle that shattered lives and families. Picture the scene, the harsh, grinding crunch of gravel under your bare feet as you're herded along a dusty, winding path toward the sea, the rough, abrasive texture of the rope cutting deeper into your wrists with every step, the cold, biting sting of the Aegean Sea breeze whipping against your face as you near the port, the air thick with the salty, briny tang of the ocean and the faint, bitter scent of blood still lingering from the battlefield where your world ended. During the legendary Trojan War, thousands of women like you were taken as spoils of victory, their homes reduced to ashes, their loved ones slaughtered or left to mourn, their capture a grim trophy for the victorious Greeks. Historical evidence, such as the epic tales in Homer's Iliad of Chryses and Briseis, women seized and bartered like goods, shows how these captives were marched in long, weary lines to coastal markets, their value coldly assessed by traders who eyed their strength, their beauty, or their potential for labor. The air carried the smoky, acrid residue of razed villages drifting on the wind and the subtle, pervasive trace of tears shed in silence, a world where the spoils of war forged the first links of their chains. Was this a triumphant celebration of conquest, a badge of honor for the victors, or a profound tragedy of human cost that stained their history, a system where capture was the first of many horrors etched into their souls? The question lingers as the waves crash against the shore with a mournful rhythm. Many who endured this violent upheaval, women stolen from their homes and families, warriors profiting from the plunder with cold, calculating greed, local chieftains turning a blind eye, faced the crushing weight of this initial trauma, their resilience tested by the brutality of their new reality, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the looming ships on the horizon, their stories buried beneath the weight of epic poems and the dust of forgotten battlefields, their pain a silent Persistent wail lost to the clamor of the march and the relentless tide of history. The slave markets turned this capture into a cold, calculated trade, systematically stripping away all traces of their humanity and dignity. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, rhythmic clatter of bronze coins changing hands as bidders raise their hands with eager anticipation, the bitter, dry taste of stale bread rationed sparingly to keep you alive yet weak, the heavy, authoritative thud of a merchant's wooden staff striking the ground to direct the restless crowd. In the thriving markets of Athens and the island hub of Delos, women were sold for a range of purposes: household labor, the grueling task of spinning wool in textile workshops, or far worse fates determined by the whims of their new masters. Archaeological finds, like the Piraeus inscriptions on a marble stele listing slave prices and transactions, reveal how traders categorized you by age, physical condition, and perceived skills, your worth reduced to a handful of drachmas exchanged with a casual nod. Overseers, armed with staffs and threats of whips, ensured your compliance, turning the bustling agora into a grim stage of despair where every glance from a potential buyer reinforced your status as property, not a person. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 exposés of trafficking rings operating in the underbelly of global cities, where women face a similar commodification and loss of autonomy, their stories echoing across the centuries. Was this a cultural norm accepted as the backbone of Greek prosperity and trade, a tradition upheld to fuel the economy, or a deliberate, calculated act of dehumanization designed to break their spirits and secure the elite's dominance, a world where the slave market deepened their fear with every transaction? The question hangs as the staff thuds against the earth with finality. Many suffered in this merciless marketplace, women stripped of their names and identities. Families torn apart by the sale of loved ones, communities complicit in the silence of economic gain, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched thin by the weight of their bondage, their pain a hidden, festering scar paid in silent tears and stifled sobs, their voices lost to the incessant clink of coins and the distant shouts of the auctioneer. But the real torment was just beginning to unfold with the fall of the auctioneer's gavel. What awaited these women beyond the auction block, and what new horrors would define their enslaved existence? Smash that like button if you're captivated by this dark revelation, and subscribe now to dive deeper into the shadows of ancient Greece. Imagine you're a woman in Corinth, 600 BCE, standing trembling before the towering marble facade of the Temple of Aphrodite, the air thick with the sweet, cloying scent of burning incense swirling from golden censers and the soft, deliberate rustle of priestly robes as stern figures lead you inside, your heart sinking with a deep, gnawing dread as you realize your slavery now serves a sacred yet sinister purpose. This is the world of temple service, a dark and chilling turn from the slave markets of Part 2, where female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, faced the horrific exploitation cloaked under the guise of divine duty and religious reverence. Here, within the sacred precincts of sanctuaries like the Acrocorinth, their bodies and spirits were offered up to appease the gods, their stories hinted at in the faded inscriptions carved into temple walls, the cryptic references in ancient Greek texts, and the silent testimonies of those who witnessed their suffering. Historians like Alison Glazebrook, through her meticulous research into the lives of women in classical antiquity, reveal this disturbing practice with unflinching detail, and today, its haunting echoes linger in the exploitation and coercion observed in some religious settings and cults exposed in 2025, a stark parallel that bridges centuries of gendered oppression. If this sends a shiver of unease and intrigue through you, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your reaction to this sacred horror. Your voice uncovers the hidden suffering of these forgotten souls. Temple service turned the bondage of slavery into a ritual of exploitation, masking their torment with the veneer of religious sanctity. Picture the scene: the warm, flickering glow of oil lamps casting long, wavering shadows on the smooth marble walls adorned with intricate carvings of divine figures, the smooth, cool texture of a silk veil forced over your head by unseen hands, the cold, unyielding touch of stone under your knees as you're made to kneel in submission, the air thick with the sweet, overpowering aroma of incense rising from the altars and the faint, bitter trace of your own fear mingling with the smoke. In the Temple of Aphrodite at Corinth, over 1,000 sacred slaves, many women like you, were forced into prostitution to honor the goddess of love and beauty, their lives dedicated not by choice but by the desperate vows of impoverished families or the cold calculations of slave traders. Historical records, such as Strabo's geography, describe how these women were subjected to a grueling existence, their bodies offered to wealthy pilgrims and sailors, their health and spirits eroded by disease and exhaustion, with mortality rates soaring due to the relentless demands placed upon them. The air carried the heavy, intoxicating scent of floral offerings piled high on the altars and the subtle, pervasive hint of despair that clung to the temple's sacred air, a world where the sanctity of the divine was a cruel mask for their suffering, where every prayer chanted was a reminder of their lost freedom. Was this a divine calling believed to elevate their souls, or a cruel deception that exploited their vulnerability, a system where religion justified their pain and turned their bodies into offerings? The question lingers as the lamps flicker in the dim light. Many who endured this sacred bondage, women bound by forced vows, priests enforcing their duty with unyielding authority, families pressured into this sacrifice, faced the crushing weight of this exploitation. Their resilience tested by the ceaseless rituals, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering columns of the temple, their stories buried beneath the weight of sacred stones and the silence of religious dogma, their pain a silent, persistent plea swallowed by the echo of chants and the rustle of priestly robes. The sacred role these women were forced into often deepened into a relentless cycle of physical and emotional torment, leaving scars that lingered beyond the temple walls. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, resonant chime of a bronze bell signaling the start of a ritual, the bitter, earthy taste of a herbal draught forced upon you to numb your senses and ensure compliance, the heavy, deliberate thud of a priest's wooden staff guiding you forward with stern precision. Archaeological evidence, such as the votive offerings and small statues dedicated at Corinth, suggests these women served not only as ritual participants but as commodities for wealthy pilgrims seeking divine favor, their bodies traded in a spiritual marketplace where profit and piety intertwined. The ever-present threat of punishment, floggings, starvation, or banishment from the temple community, ensured their obedience, turning the once holy sanctuary into a prison of faith where every step was monitored, every glance a potential rebellion. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 reports of exploitation within certain religious communities, where women are pressured into subservience under the guise of spiritual devotion, their autonomy stripped away by forces hauntingly similar to those of ancient times. Was this a deeply ingrained cultural tradition accepted as part of religious life, a practice upheld to maintain the temple's wealth and influence, or a calculated tool of control designed to break their spirits and secure the priest's power, a world where sacred duty deepened their fear with every ritual performed? The question hangs as the staff thuds against the marble floor with finality. Many suffered in this twisted service, women broken by the demands of the divine, families complicit in the hope of blessings, temple attendants enforcing the priest's will, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched thin by the weight of their imposed roles, their pain a hidden, festering wound paid in silent tears and suppressed sobs, their voices lost to the resonant echo of the bell and the distant hum of pilgrims' prayers. But what secrets hid in the temple shadows? What horrors lay beyond the rituals, and how did this sacred exploitation shape their lives? Smash that like button if you're gripped by this dark revelation, and subscribe now to explore further into the depths of ancient Greece. Imagine you're a woman in Athens, 450 BCE, dragged into the opulent yet foreboding home of a wealthy citizen, the air heavy with the sharp, pungent scent of olive oil lamps flickering in the dim light and the faint clatter of pottery as servants scurry about, your hands trembling with exhaustion as a stern, unyielding mistress assigns you endless, grueling tasks, your heart sinking with a deep, aching realization that this grand house is now your inescapable prison. This is the world of household bondage, a grim and haunting shift from the temple service of Part 3, where female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, faced domestic horrors that defined their every waking moment and haunted their dreams. Here, within the polished marble walls and shadowy corridors of elite homes across Athens, Sparta, and beyond, their labor and suffering were woven into the fabric of daily life, their stories glimpsed in the faded household inventories scratched onto clay tablets, the casual references in the writings of philosophers, and the silent echoes of their unrecorded tears. Historians like Jennifer Glancy, through her insightful analysis of slavery in the ancient world, shed light on this pervasive servitude with unflinching clarity, and today, its chilling echoes linger in the stories of domestic exploitation and abuse reported by caregivers and workers trapped in similar conditions in 2025, a sobering link that spans the centuries. If this stirs your unease and compassion, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on this hidden torment. Your voice amplifies the silent struggle of these forgotten women. Household bondage transformed homes into places of relentless toil, control, and unrelenting hardship. Picture the scene: the warm, unsteady glow of oil lamps casting long, wavering shadows on the polished marble floors worn smooth by countless footsteps, the rough, abrasive texture of a coarse broom gripped in your blistered, aching hands as you sweep for hours, the cold, biting sting of water splashing across your face as you scrub the floors on your knees, the air thick with the sharp, earthy aroma of olive oil from the kitchen hearths and the subtle, sour trace of your own exhaustion permeating the room. In the homes of influential figures like Pericles or the philosopher Plato, slaves like you worked tirelessly from the first light of dawn until the last flicker of night, cooking elaborate meals, cleaning every corner, and weaving intricate fabrics, all under the watchful, critical eye of a harsh mistress who demanded perfection. Historical texts, such as Xenophon's Economicus, a treatise on household management, describe how female slaves were expected to serve with absolute, unwavering obedience, their days consumed by an endless cycle of labor that left no room for rest or respite, their worth measured only by their productivity. The air carried the smoky, comforting scent of the hearth where meals were prepared and the faint, pervasive hint of despair that clung to the walls, a world where the domestic tranquility of the elite was built upon the torment of those they enslaved, where the clink of pottery was a constant reminder of their subjugation. Was this a necessary labor force that sustained the Greek way of life, a practical solution to the demands of a growing civilization, or a deliberate, calculated act of subjugation designed to break their spirits and uphold the power of the wealthy, a system where homes became the chains that bound their bodies and souls? The question lingers as the lamp's flame flickers in the stillness. Many who endured this grueling bondage, women toiling endlessly under the weight of their tasks, masters and mistresses enforcing strict rules with cold authority, families of the elite turning a blind eye, faced the crushing weight of this domestic oppression, their resilience tested by the ceaseless demands, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the towering columns of the household, their stories buried beneath the dust of everyday chores and the indifference of their captors, their pain a quiet, persistent cry swallowed by the clatter of daily life. The domestic role these women were forced into often deepened into a relentless cycle of physical and emotional abuse, leaving scars that lingered far beyond their servitude. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, sharp crack of a whip wielded by an overseer in the courtyard, the bitter, watery taste of thin gruel served as your only sustenance, the heavy, final thud of a thick wooden door locking you in a cramped storeroom at night. Literary evidence, such as the portrayal of the maids in Eumaeus' household in Homer's Odyssey, hints at the additional burden of sexual servitude alongside their labor, with masters exploiting their vulnerability in the privacy of their homes, their bodies subject to the whims of those who owned them. Punishments for even the slightest resistance, beatings that left marks, starvation that weakened their frames, or isolation that broke their spirits, ensured absolute compliance, turning the once inviting household into a prison where every corner held the threat of violence. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 reports of domestic workers trapped in abusive households, where they face similar exploitation and lack of recourse, their stories a mirror to this ancient past. Was this a deeply ingrained cultural norm accepted as the natural order of a slave-owning society, a tradition upheld to maintain the household's prestige, or a calculated tool of power designed to reinforce the master's dominance and suppress any hint of rebellion, a world where bondage shaped their fear with every labored breath? The question hangs as the door thuds shut with an ominous echo. Many suffered in these oppressive homes, women broken by the dual weight of labor and abuse, families of the enslaved powerless to intervene, communities complicit in the silence of social hierarchy, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the relentless demands, their pain a hidden, festering scar carried in silence, their voices lost to the crack of the whip and the distant hum of the household's routine. Yet the pain went deeper still. What other horrors awaited within these walls, and how did this domestic captivity shape their very essence? Smash that like button if you're captivated by this dark unveiling, and subscribe now to uncover more of the shadows cast by ancient Greece. Imagine you're a woman in Thebes, 400 BCE, dragged into a dimly lit, cavernous chamber deep within a temple, the air thick with the earthy, pungent scent of crushed herbs smoldering in a bronze bowl and the faint, rhythmic hum of a chant echoing off the stone walls. Your wrists bound with rough cords as a robed figure with piercing eyes prepares a mystical ritual, your heart pounding with a primal fear at the supernatural power now claimed over your very soul. This is the world of magical rituals, a dark and unsettling twist from the household bondage of Part 4, where where female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, faced horrors intertwined with mystical control and arcane manipulation. Here, within the shadowy corners of private homes, sacred temples, and hidden sanctuaries across cities like Athens, Thebes, and Delphi, their autonomy was stripped away through the casting of spells, the invocation of curses, and the practice of zoolatry, their stories preserved in the lead curse tablets unearthed by archaeologists, the cryptic references in ancient magical papyri, and the whispered legends of those who witnessed their plight. Historians like Christopher Faraoni, through his groundbreaking research into Greek magic, explore this disturbing practice with meticulous detail, and today, its haunting echoes linger in the psychological manipulation and coercion observed within some modern cults and religious sects exposed in 2025, a chilling reminder that the past's supernatural terrors still cast shadows into our present. If this sends a shiver of dread and fascination through you, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on this mystical torment. Your voice reveals the hidden suffering of these enslaved women. Magical rituals turned the bondage of slavery into a tool of supernatural domination, binding their wills and stripping their agency. Picture the scene: the warm, flickering glow of a single candle casting eerie, dancing shadows on a rough stone altar cluttered with strange objects, the smooth, cool texture of a clay tablet pressed firmly against your trembling skin as it's inscribed with your name, the cold, sticky drip of molten wax sealing a curse intended to control you, the air thick with the earthy, pungent aroma of crushed herbs rising from the smoldering bowl and the subtle, eerie trace of your own fear mingling with the smoke. In cities like Athens and Thebes, slaves like you were forced into the heart of magical practices, their bodies and spirits manipulated to serve their masters' desires through love spells to ensnare hearts, curses to inflict harm on rivals, and even zoolatry where they were linked to animal deities in bizarre rites. Historical evidence, such as the lead curse tablets discovered in the Kerameikos cemetery, reveals how women were compelled to participate, their names etched into these artifacts to bind them to the magical outcome sought by their owners, their lives reduced to pawns in a mystical game. The air carried the smoky, acrid scent of burning offerings and the faint, pervasive hint of despair that clung to the ritual space, a world where the arcane arts deepened the chains of their enslavement, where every incantation was a reminder of their lost freedom. Was this a deeply held cultural belief in the power of the divine and the mystical, a tradition rooted in the spiritual fabric of Greek society, or a cruel, calculated exploitation that used superstition to break their spirits, a system where rituals stole their souls and left them powerless? The question lingers as the candle's flame dims in the shadowy chamber. Many who endured this supernatural bondage, women ensnared by the spells cast upon them, priests and sorcerers enforcing these rites with unyielding authority, masters wielding magic as a tool of control, faced the crushing weight of this arcane oppression, their resilience tested by the relentless manipulation, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the flickering light, their stories buried beneath the weight of cursed stones and the silence of forgotten rituals, their pain a silent, persistent cry swallowed by the hum of chants and the rustle of parchment. The use of magic often escalated into a relentless cycle of psychological and physical torment, leaving scars that penetrated their very being. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, unsettling rustle of parchment as a spell is read aloud in a low, menacing tone, the bitter, earthy taste of a potion forced down your throat to dull your resistance and ensure compliance, the heavy, deliberate thud of a wooden staff marking the ritual's end with a final, authoritative strike. Archaeological finds, such as the small terracotta figurines pierced with pins and discovered in graves, suggest that slaves like you were frequent targets of binding magic, their movements restricted, their emotions manipulated, and their lives controlled through these mystical means. The ever-present threat of divine punishment, curses rebounding on them, further rituals to enforce obedience, or the physical repercussions of resistance ensured their submission, turning their existence into a mystical prison where every breath was monitored by the unseen forces invoked against them. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 reports of cult manipulation, where women are coerced through psychological tactics and false spiritual promises, their autonomy stripped away in ways hauntingly similar to this ancient practice. Was this a religious tradition woven into the cultural tapestry of ancient Greece, a custom upheld to harness supernatural power, or a deliberate tool of power designed to reinforce the master's dominance and suppress any flicker of rebellion, a world where magic shaped their fear with every whispered incantation? The question hangs as the staff thuds against the stone floor with an ominous resonance. Many suffered in these arcane rites, women broken by the weight of spells, masters and priests wielding power over them. Communities complicit in the belief of magic's necessity, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the relentless torment, their pain a hidden, festering wound carried in silence, their voices lost to the rustle of parchment and the distant echo of the chant. But what toll did these rituals take? How did this mystical control alter their lives, and what unseen scars did it leave behind? Smash that like button if you're gripped by this dark revelation, and subscribe now to dive deeper into the mystical shadows of ancient Greece. Imagine you're a woman in Sparta, 350 BCE, your hands clenched in a trembling fist of defiance as you whisper a desperate plan to escape with fellow slaves, the air tense with the sharp, piercing crack of a whip echoing from the overseer's quarters and the cold, unyielding sting of iron bars pressing against your back, your heart racing with a fragile, flickering hope that feels both daring and dangerous. This is the world of resistance and punishment, a grim and harrowing escalation from the magical rituals of Part 5, where female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, faced brutal measures designed to crush their spirit and extinguish any glimmer of rebellion. Here, within the harsh, unforgiving confines of wealthy households, sprawling labor camps, and fortified estates across Sparta, Athens, and other city-states, their rare acts of defiance met with swift and severe retribution, their stories etched into the stern legal codes inscribed on stone tablets, the fragmented oral traditions passed down by survivors, and the silent scars borne by those who dared to resist. Historians like Thomas Weidman, through his comprehensive studies of ancient slavery, document this oppressive system with unflinching detail, and today, its haunting echoes linger in the resilience and strength displayed by abuse survivors and human rights advocates fighting against modern oppression in 2025, a testament to the enduring human spirit. If this stirs your admiration and empathy, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your thoughts on their bravery. Your voice honors the courage of these forgotten women. Resistance among female slaves was a rare, desperate act of defiance against overwhelming odds and relentless control. Picture the scene, the warm, unsteady glow of a hidden oil lamp casting trembling shadows in a cramped, musty storeroom where you huddle with others, the rough, splintered texture of a makeshift tool carved from wood in your calloused hands, the cold, damp bite of stone walls pressing in on all sides, the air thick with the dusty, stale scent of straw scattered on the floor and the subtle, tense trace of fear mixed with determination. In the militaristic society of Sparta and the bustling urban centers of Athens, women like you occasionally plotted daring escapes, refused to perform assigned tasks, or banded together in secret to resist the yoke of servitude, their defiance a fragile spark against the iron grip of slavery. Historical evidence, such as Plato's Laws, which outlines the management of slaves, notes rare uprisings, like those in the silver mines of Laurium where enslaved women joined male counterparts in acts of rebellion, their courage a fleeting challenge to the status quo. The air carried the smoky, secretive hint of their whispered plans and the faint, hopeful echo of solidarity among the oppressed, a world where resistance was their only shield against despair, where every hushed word was a risk worth taking. Was this a futile, doomed gesture against an unyielding system, or a powerful testament to their unbreakable strength and will to survive, a system where defiance sparked a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness? The question lingers as the lamp's faint light flickers in the stillness. Many who dared to resist, women risking everything for a chance at freedom, overseers ever vigilant and ready to strike, fellow slaves torn between support and fear, faced the crushing weight of this perilous struggle, their resilience tested by the constant threat of discovery, their fear a constant, oppressive shadow cast by the looming presence of authority. Their stories buried beneath the weight of legal texts and the dust of suppressed memories, their pain a quiet, resolute cry swallowed by the silence of the night. Punishment was swift, severe, and meticulously designed to break their will completely, ensuring absolute submission. Imagine the oppressive, heart-pounding atmosphere, the faint, sharp crack of a leather whip slicing through the air with cruel precision, the bitter, salty taste of sweat and tears mingling on your lips as you're forced to your knees, the heavy, authoritative thud of a guard's iron-shod boot as you're dragged back to confinement. Legal codes, such as those established in Solon's reforms in Athens, mandated harsh penalties for disobedience, including public floggings that left lasting marks, prolonged isolation in dark cells, or starvation that weakened their bodies and spirits, turning every home and labor site into a prison of terror. Archaeological finds, such as the rusted iron shackles and chains uncovered in ancient labor camps, reveal the extent of confinement and physical restraint imposed upon them, a stark testament to the lengths taken to enforce compliance. Modern parallels emerge in the 2025 stories of individuals punished for resisting abuse, from domestic workers to political prisoners, their struggles echoing the ancient fight for dignity. Was this a cultural necessity to maintain order in a slave-dependent society, a tradition upheld to preserve the elite's power, or a deliberate, calculated tool of control crafted to shatter their spirits and suppress any hint of rebellion, a world where punishment shaped their fear with every lash and lock? The question hangs as the boot thuds against the ground with a final, ominous echo. Many suffered under this ruthless retribution, women broken by the sting of whips and the weight of confinement, masters and overseers enforcing order with cold indifference, communities complicit in the silence of social hierarchy, their resilience a fragile, flickering thread stretched to its breaking point by the relentless oppression, their pain a hidden, festering scar carried in silence and defiance, their voices lost to the sharp crack of the whip and the distant hum of the oppressor's commands. But their legacy endured. What strength did they leave behind, and how did their resistance shape the course of history? Smash that like button if you're moved by their spirit, and subscribe now to uncover more of the enduring legacy from ancient Greece. Imagine you're standing in a quiet, dimly lit museum gallery in 2025, the air filled with the dusty, nostalgic scent of ancient artifacts carefully preserved on weathered shelves and the soft, mechanical hum of a display case rotating to reveal a cracked vase depicting a chained woman, your fingers hesitating as they trace the cool glass protecting it, your heart growing heavy with a deep sorrow as a news alert buzzes on your phone about ongoing gender inequality and human trafficking. This is the legacy of enslavement, the concluding chapter from the resistance of Part 6, where the unimaginable horrors and unyielding resilience faced by female slaves in ancient Greece, from 1200 to 323 BCE, left a profound and enduring mark on the course of history. Here, within the silent echoes of their struggles, captured in war, traded in markets, exploited in temples, bound in homes, controlled by magic, and punished for defiance, their experiences resonate with startling clarity in the modern battles for gender equality and human rights, their stories preserved in the fragile pottery shards unearthed by archaeologists, the poignant reflections in ancient literary works, and the tireless advocacy of those who seek to honor their memory. Historians like Sarah Pomeroy, through her extensive research into the lives of women in classical antiquity, trace this unbroken thread of influence with meticulous care, and today, its haunting echoes linger in the global #MeToo movement, the anti-trafficking campaigns, and the ongoing debates over women's autonomy unfolding across the world in 2025, a sobering reminder that the past's injustices still shape our present struggles. If this moves you with a mix of sorrow, inspiration, and resolve, hit that like button and subscribe now. Comment below your reflections on this enduring legacy. Your voice closes this journey with purpose and ignites a call to action. The legacy of these enslaved women shaped gender roles, societal norms, and the fight for justice across the centuries. Picture the scene, the warm, golden glow of a spotlight illuminating the faded, intricate designs on a cracked vase, the smooth, cool texture of the protective glass under your fingertips, the cold, hard touch of the museum floor beneath your feet as you stand in contemplation, the air thick with the dusty, earthy aroma of antiquity rising from the artifacts and the subtle, poignant trace of sorrow that seems to linger in the room. After the fall of ancient Greece, the exploitation and resilience of these women influenced the structure of Roman slavery, the feudal serfdom of the medieval period, and the gendered subordination that persisted into the modern era, their suffering a silent thread woven into the fabric of Western civilization. Historical texts, like the satirical plays of Aristophanes where female characters hint at the strength born from adversity, and the philosophical musings of later thinkers, reveal how their endurance began to inspire change, a legacy carried forward into the suffragette movements of the 20th century and the feminist revolutions that continue to unfold. The air carried the musty, timeless scent of history preserved in these walls and a faint, hopeful hint of the progress yet to come, a world where their pain and resistance forged a foundation for the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. Was this a lesson from the past that we have repeatedly ignored, allowing similar patterns of oppression to persist, or a powerful foundation upon which we can build a future of equity and empowerment, a system where their suffering has shaped the present we inhabit and the battles we fight today? The question lingers as the spotlight's light begins to dim in the quiet gallery. Many who lived through this dark legacy, women enduring their torment in silence, reformers drawing inspiration from their strength, modern advocates echoing their cries, left behind a legacy of unyielding resilience, their spirits tested by the weight of history, their fear a lingering shadow cast by the chains of the past, their stories emerging as a clarion call to action that resonates through time, their pain a quiet, persistent echo that drives the pursuit of a more just world beneath the grandeur of ancient relics. This legacy reverberates with striking clarity in 2025, reflecting in today's gender struggles and societal evolution with a force that demands our attention. Imagine the somber, reflective atmosphere, the distant, mournful chime of a clock in the museum blending with the sharp, insistent buzz of a 2025 podcast discussing women's rights and the fight against modern slavery, the bitter, acrid taste of black coffee turning sour in your mouth as you read the survivor stories flashing across your screen, the cold, heavy realization settling into your chest as you connect these contemporary headlines to the trembling figures depicted on the ancient vase. Clutched in the display. The global #MeToo movement, with its powerful testimonies of survival and resistance, and the 2025 campaigns against human trafficking and gender-based violence echo the plight of these ancient slaves with uncanny precision, while modern Greece grapples with debates over gender equality, traditional expectations clashing with progressive ideals in a society still shaped by its historical roots. Artifacts like the vase, with its haunting image of a chained woman symbolizing both captivity and endurance, serve as a bridge that connects the past to the present, a tangible reminder of how the struggles of these enslaved women still inform the battles waged by their descendants today, urging us to recognize the continuity of their fight. Was this an inescapable cycle of oppression repeated through the ages, a pattern we are doomed to repeat unless we act, or a clarion call to break free from the chains of history and forge a new path forward? A world where their legacy demands action, accountability, and change with every step we take. The question hangs as the chime fades into the hum of the modern world. Many fight on today, women reclaiming their power and agency, advocates pushing forward with unrelenting determination, survivors sharing their stories to heal and inspire, their resilience a powerful, radiant beacon illuminating the path to justice, their pain a mirror reflecting the failures of centuries past, their voices urging us to remember, to learn, and to act with courage against the darkness that lingers. This ends our journey through the shadowy corridors of ancient Greece and the horrific realities that haunted its female slaves, but the fight for justice, dignity, and truth begins now, a battle that starts with each of us standing against the echoes of enslavement. Smash that like button if you're inspired to make a difference, and subscribe now to join us in seeking a future where these voices are finally heard, honored, and empowered.